Hey everyone, welcome to the What is Money show. I am honored and thrilled today to be sitting down with Mr. Eric Voorhees, who is the certainly the founder of Shapeshift. But given that Shapeshift is decentralizing, I'm not so sure if he's the CEO anymore. But Eric, welcome to the show. Maybe you could enlighten me as to what's going on over there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Robert. I've been a great fan of the show. I'm not going to be able to go in depth about like ancient Greek technologies like Sailor was. His whole arc has been fantastic to listen to, and I love that historical context. But yeah, just really glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you on. Really glad to hear you're enjoying the Sailor series. Guy is something else for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but today I'm hoping, as we were just saying offline, like trying to understand in my mind how we have conversations about decentralization. I don't think there's much of an argument out there at this point, at least in the crypto community. Maybe I'm wrong about this, that Bitcoin is decentralized or is at least the most decentralized crypto asset in the universe. Um, it didn't start out that way, right? It was just an idea in one guy's mind. It was as centralized as it could be, and it went through this release into the wild and this organic adoption path. And I don't think that decentralization, like everything else in life, it's probabilistic. Really, it's never like you're fully there or you're fully not there. But I would say Bitcoin's the furthest down that road. So what I've been mulling over is how do we describe that road? How do we quantify it? How do we know when an asset or a network has achieved sufficient decentralization for whatever its stated goal is? And I'm hoping you can shine a little light on that with your experience decentralizing Shapeshift.
Yeah. Uh, so the question of whether things are decentralized or not, I think is one of the most important that people in this ecosystem um, can think about. And what we had before Bitcoin was a world in which nothing that was financial was decentralized,
Hmm.
right? Maybe gold, but still there, the custodians were not. And so you go from this world in which everything that is financial is centralized to some degree, and then suddenly this new thing comes along that doesn't have any any analog. People don't know what to make of it. For years, people are trying to understand what it is. What is it supposed to be doing? We're all still trying to figure that out to some degree. And this concept is birthed for the first time of a decentralized system, specifically in the realm of finance. And I think a lot of observers too quickly moved to things are either decentralized or they're not, instead of the much more nuanced discussion of what makes something decentralized, like what are the elements that can be decentralized, and understanding that all of these elements are a spectrum. And so the interesting conversation isn't whether something is decentralized or not, but is to what degree is it decentralized and on what vector. This is something that all of us should be experts in, is that conversation. And Bitcoin's decentralization clearly is the most decentralized, but still there you have to talk about like on which metrics. And it's important to understand how Bitcoin emerged, right? It was not like decentralized on day one. And we need to not like wrap Bitcoin in a religion of falsehoods, because if we lose the understanding of how it actually works, then we've actually harmed Bitcoin's ability to advance in the world.
Mm.
So yeah, talking about decentralization is fantastic. The crypto ecosystem is full of projects ranging from very centralized to very decentralized and on different metrics. So yeah, let's discuss that. It's a good place to start.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess I'll begin with my just general understanding is that the purpose of decentralization is predominantly, if not only, censorship resistance. Right? We want to know that basically no one else's opinion or any individual aggregate of willpower can disproportionately influence whatever this asset or network is intended to do. So to your point, the historical analog would be gold, right? Gold was selected as money for a number of reasons. It exhibited a number of properties, but there were a lot of monetary metals out there, but gold proved to be the most resistant to political machinations, I guess you could say, by virtue of its difficulty to produce. So it's cost to produce, I guess you could say. So in that case, it served as kind of a neutral or apolitical monetary layer for an analog world. And it seems like, again, Bitcoin has sort of taken that place in the digital realm, where decentralization is very important because Bitcoin is essentially the ultimate enemy of the state, right? It's disrupting the most important monopoly in the world. So maybe we could start there. Are there other purposes to decentralization besides censorship resistance? And if so, it would seem to me that the amount of decentralization would be very tightly correlated to what the thing was trying to do. Like, I think of a prediction market where they talk about the potential of assassination markets and all this, that would need to be rather decentralized. But if it's a CryptoKitties, jackpot game or something, maybe that doesn't need to be so decentralized.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I'd say it's a little more generalized in that, first, there's a lot of reasons to not decentralize, right? There's a lot of really good, valid reasons for something to be central. And certainly, like when Ethereum was in its early days and there were a bunch of new people that got into Ethereum and they were talking about all these decentralized dApps and they were going to like decentralize everything, there's a tendency to not realize why it's important to have certain things be centralized. And if someone wants a visceral example of this, like the human body is a centralized organism. Mm-hmm. If it was decentralized, you just like explode into all directions and suddenly there's no being there. So centralization and decentralization can both be valuable, and it depends on what the purpose is. I think, generally you have to think about what the application is you're going for. And you said it really well in Bitcoin being like the ultimate anti-state weapon. I love phrasing it like that because people don't talk about Bitcoin very much like that anymore. That was kind of like an early on Bitcoin, like people would acknowledge that this is a tool of wresting power away from the monopoly of state and giving that power to all mankind. And that's a very controversial thing to do. I mean, that is making enemies with not just one government, but all governments around the world. It is making enemies with the institution of government. Mm-hmm. So something that is trying to do that is trying to wrest away power from the most powerful organizations in the world, all at the same time, needs to be so resilient, right? It needs to not be able to be corrupted by any central party. So Bitcoin has to be extremely decentralized. Mm-hmm. And it sacrifices a lot of things to do that, right? It sacrifices certain efficiencies so that it can become more decentralized. And that's exactly what it should do. There are other assets in the financial world, in crypto, that don't need to do that. They don't need to necessarily wrest the power over money away from the state. And so those projects wouldn't need anywhere near the decentralization of Bitcoin. And it doesn't mean that they're worse or bad. It just means that they have a different purpose. And it's okay to understand things that have different purposes and then to compare them in that degree.